I was wrong about Marathon. I'll say that up front right now and get it out of the way. In my video about the server slam, I said that Marathon as a game did not have a hook and that I wanted this game to also have a single player campaign. I still stand by the latter, but this game does have a hook, but it's not one that will immediately jump out at you. As for the hook itself, what might it be, you may ask? Well, to put it simply, it's the in-depth quest structure mixed with the emergent PvP gameplay of each and every run. Marathon's contemporary, Arc Raiders, shares almost no DNA with this game we're talking about here today. Aside from being in the extraction shooter space, both these games operate in a very different sphere of that genre. Marathon is fundamentally more niche and is fundamentally more challenging, and this will cause a lot of players to bounce off the game quick. But if you're a fan of the genre and you don't mind occasionally getting sweaty, and if you stick with this game through its opening hours, I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. So today, let's talk about Marathon, all its systems, features, and gameplay, and why Marathon is way better than you think. Before we begin, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Every single one of y'all helps out. Let's get back to the video. One thing that I think both Arc Raiders and Marathon do really well, albeit in some different ways, is their respective worlds. And to be honest, as important as the actual gameplay can be for a multiplayer shooter, I think the world serves as the barrier to entry for a lot of these games. If the world you're inhabiting, the art style, the sound design, the lore doesn't interest you, then the gameplay can be the greatest gameplay of the decade and it wouldn't matter. Extraction shooters need to be a little spooky. I'm not saying they need to have Resident Evil levels worth of scares in there, but the whole premise of an extraction shooter is based on a kind of permadeath mode. If you die while out on a run, you lose everything, and so the world that surrounds you needs to reflect that danger. Whether that's with the atmosphere, lore, map design, or sound design, a level of tension needs to be built for the game to feel like it belongs in the extraction shooter space, and I think Marathon excels in most of these areas. Without a doubt, I think Marathon flexes the most in its atmosphere, lore, and sound design. The atmosphere in this game is simply awesome. Whether it's walking through torrential downpour in Perimeter or the foggy swamps of Dire Marsh, the atmosphere in this game invokes that tension in me. If I'm playing solo, I feel alone. I feel that tension that in one wrong turn, I could lose everything. If I'm playing in a squad, maybe that tension isn't as present because I know I have some teammates at my 6, but the atmosphere itself is still really compelling. I think the atmosphere is perfectly complemented with Marathon's sound design. Bungie cooked here, man. Whether it's the sound of the weapons, the robotic clanks of the UESC AI enemies, or just the ambient sounds of the environment itself, I think the sound design is expertly done and really promotes the lonely and desolate feeling. The lore itself is also some of the most interesting lore we've had from Bungie in a while. Marathon takes place on Tau Ceti, where the remnants of an ancient colony ship known as the Marathon is located. You're known as a runner, a neural-linked, avatar-esque body that is sent to the lost colonies on Tau Ceti to gather materials for the various companies that had a stake in the expedition, while learning about what also happened on Tau Ceti. Straight up, this is a really cool premise, and it honestly serves as a huge part of the catalyst of my drive to keep playing this game. I'm not a guy who reads codex entries of games often, but in Marathon, I caught myself actually reading and wanting to learn about how life worked on Tau Ceti and what might have happened to it. I think the only thing that I'm not as high on is the map designs themselves. I mentioned this in my Server Slam impressions, but I find that a lot of the points of interest are just simply not recognizable enough. Maybe that has to do with the art design itself, but there is not a lot of variance on the look and feel of these buildings, particularly the interiors. They're all just really generic and don't provide any visual cues as to what we might find in them. I think in the future, I would love if they made some more grandiose points of interest. Maybe that's with the use of verticality to have certain buildings tower above the map, serving as a beacon to go explore, or maybe that's with some more unique interior spaces. If I'm in a science lab, give me loot and interior spaces that make it feel like I'm in a science lab. If I'm in someone's house, make the interior feel like someone used to live there, and have that loot that can be collected there represent that. The other thing I would say that I still feel as though the maps are a little too small. In Marathon, with the 25-minute timer you're given, it is entirely feasible to go from one end of the map to the other, looting the various POIs you see along the way. If your squad has multiple quests they want to complete, it is entirely possible you can get every single one done within that 25-minute timer. In my opinion, and I may be in the minority for this, I don't think this should be the case for every map. I'm fine with having some smaller maps that allow you to get in, get some loot, get into some fights, and then hopefully get out. But I would love some larger maps that force you to strategically plan out what points of interest you want to hit and what you need to avoid based on the spawn location. I want certain runs to feel daunting. Part of the extraction shooter ethos is that not everything is fair. Say I have a quest I want to complete that requires me to go to a specific POI, and say the map is big enough that when I randomly spawn on the other side of the map, I have to completely change up my plan on how I want to attack the run. Right now, with the sizes of the maps that are present at launch, that is a feeling I just never get. The last thing I'll say about the world itself is that, like I mentioned earlier, I think a single player campaign would have done wonders for this game. Don't get me wrong, I like the extraction shooter roots of this game a lot. I think as time has gone on, I've learned to appreciate what the game is and not harp on what the game isn't. But still, even right now, I think Bungie flexed its creative muscles a lot with the world building in this game and then left us high and dry by not including a single player campaign. There might be some of you out there that don't remember Bungie before the Destiny days, but I absolutely do. I remember playing Halo Reach in 2010. I remember playing one of the best single player shooter campaigns of all time and then transitioning into an incredibly solid arena multiplayer mode after. Bungie showed me, with the level of world building they did for Marathon, that they still have what it takes to write a compelling backstory, and that the bones of a compelling narrative is here. If they could have just followed through with that, that would have been really nice. Overall, man, when it comes to the world, I've slowly but surely have grown to really like what Bungie has made here. Even though I think there's quite a bit left to be desired in the actual map designs themselves, the atmosphere, the sound design, and the world building make up for it right now. But at some point, the design of the maps that Bungie will inevitably release as the seasons go on need to feature more recognizable points of interest and need to be a tad bit larger. I mentioned earlier that the world that a game has to offer is the barrier to entry for a lot of people. If someone finds the world compelling, they're inclined to give the game more of a chance. But what gets them to stay for the long run is the gameplay. So let's talk about it. For as great as the world is, and trust me, I do think the world is pretty great, I think Marathon's gameplay is truly next level. To get the basics out of the way, Marathon is a first-person extraction shooter. So, in its most basic sense, you spawn in on a map with either just yourself or a squad with 2 other players, you hunt around the map for loot, kill some AI enemies, kill some real enemies, and then hopefully extract out. If you die during any point of this whole affair, you lose everything that was on your person. Now, extraction shooters in general are already a pretty niche genre. The only game to even catch a whiff of the mainstream has been Arc Raiders, and I can confidently say that Marathon does nothing to make the gameplay loop more casual to appeal to a wider audience. Marathon's gameplay is sweaty, and you have to know that going in or you're not going to have a good time. To get a less nuanced take out of the way, I think the gunplay itself is fantastic. Weapons feel punchy, there's a lot of different types of weapons, and each weapon feels unique. But to be honest, I expected this. Marathon is a game that is made by the iconic developer Bungie, the studio that made iconic games like Halo Reach, and even in some respects Destiny. I expected the gunplay to be good, and I'm glad that it is. Every encounter you have, whether it's with an AI enemy or real enemies, feels tense. The AI enemies, which are known as UESC, aren't exactly tough to kill, but there are a lot of them out there, roaming every major POI. On top of that, the game will frequently send reinforcements, so there is a constant wave of UESC out there for you to fight. Some extraction points are guarded, meaning the second you attempt to extract, the UESC will be alerted and will send a massive ship full of enemies your way. They're not hard to kill, but there are a lot of them, and so it's easy to get overwhelmed quick. But I think where the game shines is within the PvP aspect. Marathon is not Arc Raiders. Whenever you see an opposing squad, your first instinct is to not go up to them and see if they're friendly. It is shoot on sight with Marathon. This may imply that gameplay is less nuanced, but that's not true at all. With the addition of classes, or shells as Marathon calls them, it's important to make sure that you're maximizing your shell's ability to their fullest. Whether it's the healer shell, or the thief shell, or the recon shell, each shell serves a purpose, and most, if not all of them, are useful in some way, shape, or form. Each shell comes with an ultimate ability, as well as 2 minor abilities which are all useful in some way. Knowing your shell inside and out, and complementing the shells that your squad mates are running is a crucial aspect of every encounter. Using your ultimate at the right time, whether it's healing your downed teammate, or stripping the opposing squad of their gear with a drone at the right time, can mean the difference between getting to extract and losing everything. Speaking of collecting, the loot in this game is a little bit hit or miss for me. I mentioned this in my Service Lane impressions, but the icons in this game do not do a good job of telling you what it is you're picking up and if it's immediately going to be useful to you. This leads me to blindly pick up anything that's the color green or above, because I know that's the more rare items without knowing if it's actually going to be useful for me or not. And since the game throws so much loot at you, whether it's with the quest completion rewards or the generous free loadout system that allows you to go in without putting up any of your actual stuff at stake, your vault gets filled up fast. On top of this, there is no crafting system like in Arc Raiders, so it's not like you can get rid of clutter in your vault by crafting various items like guns or shields. So you're left with an insane amount of loot that may or may not be useful and that you can do nothing with except sell. It gets frustrating sometimes that in order to make room for some actually useful loot I picked up in one run, I have to resort to selling my rare or very rare items. I could be wrong, but I haven't found a way to increase your vault size yet like in Arc Raiders, so I'm stuck with the same size vault I started with. The one counter argument that I have to my own critique is that in Marathon, dying is very common. This game is not like Arc Raiders where extracting successfully is more the norm than not. In Marathon, you will die a lot, and so, naturally, you will lose a lot of loot. But again, I think the generous free loadout system allows me to recoup those losses pretty quickly, and the moment I have 2 or 3 successful runs in a row, I'm back to having my vault be expeditiously full. The last thing I want to talk about with the gameplay, and I saved the best for last, is the quest system. I really love this quest system. Basically, there are 8 or so companies in Marathon that will give you various quests. Each of these companies tie into the lore and the overall story of what happened to the lost colony of Tau Ceti. Whether it's Traxxas and their mining and supplying business, or New Caloric and their food and crop business, every single company has a reason to give you these quests. The quests always pertain to what the company actually does. The Revolutionists want you to destroy the colony, so their quest will have you break glass and shatter things throughout your run. Traxxas wants you to collect material that they believe is rightfully theirs and bring it back home. New Caloric wants you to download data from various farms to learn about what happened to the people. I mentioned earlier that I found the lore of this story very interesting, and I think the quest system perfectly plays into this. I learned more about the world while doing specific, sometimes kind of challenging quests, giving me an incentive to keep playing and finding out what happened to this world. I mentioned that the opening hours of this game are slow, and I admit that this is where I felt that slowness the most. Even though the world intrigued me, it took a while for me to unlock the various factions, learn their backstories, and then ultimately began to piece together what happened to this world. But once I broke through that barrier, and I had the various factions unlocked, and I was doing quests with them, and I was learning about this world in a meaningful way, I was hooked. Overall, man, there isn't much more I can say other than that I'm thoroughly having fun with Marathon right now. In previous videos, I would maybe leave it at that and tell you all to go buy the game and to give it a try. You'll know if this game is for you in the first couple of hours or so, and if it's not, you can always return it. But this is a live service game, and I've been burned one too many times by the lack of planned good content. Marathon has 3 maps at launch. That's it. Perimeter, Dire Marsh, and Outpost. And sure, maybe that's enough content for me to last a month or 2 without complaining. But what about the future? Will Bungie be good at releasing regular content, new maps, new weapons, new shells? Only time will tell on that. On top of that, the Battle Pass right now is an objectively bad deal. You cannot recoup the money you spent on the Battle Pass by just playing the game and finishing the pass. And there are duplicate stickers in the Battle Pass because stickers are a one-time use only. Bungie has addressed that they will fix these issues, but they never should have been in the game in the first place. Who's to say Bungie won't try some shit like this again in the future? Right now, at this current moment, for $40, I will recommend you give this game a try if you know you're a fan of the extraction shooter space. If you're not a fan of Arc Raiders, or if the game didn't click for you in a way you wanted it to, Marathon is fundamentally more niche and will most likely not click for you either. But if you like shooters, you're into what Bungie makes, or if you love Arc Raiders, give this game a try. You'll know if it's for you in a couple of hours. It's now up to Bungie to support the game, provide meaningful value in its Battle Pass offerings, and not pull a dice and drip feed content to gamers that are hungry for more. The bones of Marathon are really, really good. Bungie, please don't squander this outstanding potential.